Hi, my name's Helen Blackburn. I am the professor of flute at West Texas A&M University, where all things are good. We're up here in Canyon, Texas. I also am the principal flutist of the Dallas Opera Orchestra, so I have the perfect life. I get to do my two favorite things, which are teach the flute and play the flute. And today I'm going to talk about embouchure, which is a little bit of a daunting task because we have so many different opinions about embouchure. And of course there's not, just as people look different, nobody has the same face, the same teeth, the same lips, same body shape and size. So embouchures are all going to be different, but there are some things that I have found over the course of teaching several 100,000 students for a million years that really good embouchures that produce a really good resonant, sonorous, in-tune tone with lots of flexibility. There are a lot of things that every face has in common, every embouchure, and so that's what I'm going to try to pull together for you today, and hope that you'll take some of these ideas and experiment with them. That's how I make all my discoveries, is allowing myself to just go, well, that's not working, let me try something different. So experiment, keep an open mind, and okay, here we go. First of all, to talk about embouchure, I have learned you can't just start with embouchure. You have to start with the setup, playing position, hand position, breathing. So I'm gonna quickly go over that. And at the very end, I'm gonna do a few minutes about how I start beginners, which is also a method that I use when I'm changing somebody's embouchure, like in college, if I get students who have really tight embouchures or whatever. So I'll save that for the end. But so, talking about setup, I think the most important thing is the head joint alignment. And I have played with my head joint rolled out and with it rolled in. I've done the Rockstro method, the modified Rockstro method, but for the last 30 years, I settled on a neutral alignment. Basically, the embouchure hole you want lined up. This is my opinion, but you know who else plays like this? Emmanuel Pahoon. He says line up the center of the embouchure hole with the center of the first open hole. So if you can see that and that works for you, do that, that's great. I line up the outside edge of my embouchure hole with the outside edge of the first key, or you might think of the embouchure hole lined up with the first key. And I find that it's a little bit hard to see it and make sure it's the same way every day. So when I find my magic spot, I mark it with a big slash of red nail polish. And I do this with all of my students. It won't hurt your flute. And that does not mean that you have to play with it like that every day. You can pull it out further, you can push it in further. You can roll it out, you can roll it in. It just gives you a point of reference so that you know that your head joint is lined up the same way every day. The flute's the only instrument that the head joint alignment matters that much. If trumpets put a mouthpiece on and turn it to the left or right, it's the exact same instrument. Clarinet, it's pretty obvious if it's turned left or right, but on flute, if we roll out 1 millimeter one day and roll in 1 millimeter one day, it's a completely different instrument, and we're gonna either have to compensate for it with our hand position, like this, if I'm rolled out too far, or with our embouchure, or our tone is just gonna suffer. So I highly recommend that you do that. Sorry, we keep looking because there's somebody walking out there. Anyway, then playing position, super, super important because you want to find an as neutral as possible position. Of course, since the flute is out to the right, there is no completely neutral position. You want to avoid this picture that we all have in our head, what we call in Texas the marching band position, where your flute is straight out to the right and it's parallel to the floor. That right there creates so much tension in my shoulders just to hold it at that position. It climbs all the way up into my jaw and it really does affect my embouchure. So I got this idea I'm fixing to show you from one of my friends. I don't remember who, but whoever it is, thank you. This is a great way to find a really good playing position, a neutral position that works for most everybody in the world. So I call it elbows to knees. So you bend forward, and you can do this either from a standing position, you're gonna have to squat, or else you lean forward if you're in a chair. And I teach this to baby beginners and to my college students, everybody in between. You bring your elbows all the way out to the front of your knees. Don't cheat, put one back here, all the way out to the front. Then you bring your flute into playing position. So you're gonna nestle that embouchure plate right into the dent of your chin, just under your lip. Make sure your right wrist is straight, your left wrist is bent. Do-da, So what happens here is now we have the flute at a slight downward angle, and the foot joint is forward away from your right shoulder. This allows your spine to be aligned and your lungs are not being twisted. Anyway, then you come straight up. You might have to tweak a little bit. You want your chin parallel to the floor, embouchure hole facing the ceiling. So we're in a good playing position. So things to really think about: foot joint forward and down a little bit. Right wrist straight, left wrist bent, so your fingers are curved up and over the rods. I generally put my thumb right under my right hand index finger, although if you have a double jointed thumb, you might need to go down facing towards the foot joint. You want the head joint, under the lever maybe. You want to find a position where all of your fingers are curved naturally and in a loose position. Then relax your shoulders down away from your ears. Let your elbows just hang. Here's our neutral position, okay? And I've mentioned this before. I'm going to say some things a lot. One thing I sing about all the time to my students is keeping your chin parallel to the floor and the embouchure hole facing the ceiling. That's going to solve a whole lot of big embouchure problems right there, because we tend to, most of the world, it seems like, tends to roll in a little bit too much. They do what I call, they bring the flute to the airstream rather than bringing the airstream to the flute. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of embouchure. So basically, I think the best thing is to start out with a neutral embouchure. So this is my flute face. This is not my flute face. Smiley, we all know that, right? And I really don't talk about bringing my corners down, pulling them down. I just talk about relaxing them. Wherever your face grows, that's going to be the best for a neutral note, like B natural, which is where we're going to start. I also don't talk about making a small aperture. And at the very end, when I talk about how I start beginners, you'll see why I don't do that. What I do talk about a lot is air. 99% of our sound is air and 1% is our lips. So we just think of your embouchure. Sometimes we overthink what we're doing with our face and we underthink what we're doing with our air. So the lips are just a funnel to direct your airstream into the flute. They are not what creates the sound. The air is what creates the sound. So you want to start with number one, a big giant breath. Then drop your jaw. If you have students that tend to keep their teeth too close together and get this wee sound, one thing I like to do is take a cork from a wine bottle and cut a wheel from it, about, maybe half an inch thick, and then I cut that in half, so I have this little half moon shape. And then we put that in the back between the molars. Just a little trick to give them the sense of having some space there. And some of my students react really well. They love it. They'll play with it for hours, but sometimes we just pop. Some people can't stand it. Anyway, so step one, big breath. Step two, drop your jaw. Just let it hang. You don't want to force it open. Just hang like you're falling asleep on the couch. Step three is we're going to bring the flute embouchure plate into the dent of your chin. And you want to make sure that you're hugging that embouchure plate with your lower lip, so it's like from corner to corner, and that you're in contact with the entire embouchure plate. You'll notice if you're rolled up a little too far, you're not touching the bottom of it. If you roll down, you're going to have a better sound that has more harmonics, and now you're going to have to do a little bit more work. And how do we do that? Okay, there are three things, the three V's I call them, that affect tone quality, and it's the volume of air, meaning how much air you're putting through the flute, the velocity of the air, the speed, and the vector, or the angle that is going into it. And you want to do all of this, any adjustments you make to the three V's, volume, vector, velocity, vector, totally with your jaw and your lips. So you can slide your jaw forward. Well, I got a little ahead of myself. When you put your embouchure plate in the dent of your chin, you want for most people, the inside edge of the embouchure hole is going to be about where the pink part of your lip starts. Okay, and then your lower lip is going to cover a quarter to a third of the embouchure hole. Making sure you keep that full contact between your chin, your lips, and the embouchure blade, and that your chin is parallel to the floor and embouchure hole facing the ceiling. So you're not doing this. How many times have we seen that? Chin parallel to the floor, embouchure hole facing the ceiling, right wrist straight, left wrist bent. You see the reverse of this a lot, and almost 100% of the time there's going to be a problem with the head joint alignment if the right wrist is bent and the left wrist is straight. So, and then all sorts of things are affected by that. Shoulder tension, your chin's down on your shoulder, your flute is insecure, so it's a lot of little things right there. Then, okay, to change the air direction, you're going to use your jaw. You can drop it down, slide it back, so you can do lots of experimentation there. And you also can use your upper lip to direct the air more down, which is what you want to do to play low or louder. In contrast, to play higher or softer, you're going to slide your jaw and your lips forward, and don't even think about your top lip, it'll come out of the way itself. But so the air for low or loud is down, high or soft is across. So every day my very first note, and this is thanks to Trevor Y, is a B natural in the staff, this one right here. He talks about it in his fabulous book, which was life-changing for me, the tone book from the Trevor Y practice series. And that B natural is the easiest note to produce on the flute. And that's where I want to start every day. I want to start in a neutral position. And I just use that time, I might play it for 30 seconds or a minute, to check in and see. See if I'm holding tension anywhere. Could you hear the sound change drastically from here? Okay, so another book that I found to be extremely helpful to me when I started teaching a million years ago is this book, The Gilbert Legacy by Angelina Floyd. So much is explained in here. Gilbert thought about all these things I'm talking about, so I stole a lot of these ideas from him. Stole a wonderful exercise from this book, Check Up by Peter Lucas Graf. There's a harmonic exercise I'll do, whistle tone exercise I'll do later. And then of course, De La Sonority, the tone Bible. But anyway, Trevor Y talks about starting out on that B natural. I started doing it and it kind of changed the course of my life. And I'm gonna show you here when I play that B natural, this is a really great tool. This is the Tonal Energy app, it costs $3.99, I think. And I've clicked on analysis and then I pulled up the harmonic analysis. And when I play that B, I just like to experiment and see what my tone looks like. This is a visual representation of my tone. And I like to see how many of the beams I can line up. There's not necessarily a right way, but you can then experiment and go, oh, what happens if I tighten my corners? Oh, I lost like a good deal of these harmonics up here. What if I roll out? You get a whole different picture, but what I really focus on is lighting up as many of the beams as I can, and the second column, which is the first green column, that's an octave above the note that you're playing. And I have noticed through experimentation that if I try to get that beam, that upper octave really present and in tune, my tone is better. So you can hear there that upper octave is flat. This is called playing in tune. Your harmonics need to be in tune with themselves. And so you take all that information about a neutral embouchure, space between your teeth, it's about 1.5 finger width. A huge breath, neutral face, a lot of fast air, and then you experiment with how much air you use and what direction you're aiming at by moving your jaw and your lips around. Things you don't want to move. You don't want to move your flute, and you don't want to move your head, because that drastically affects the sound quality. We want a consistent tone through all 3 octaves of the flute, and you want flexibility so that you can change octaves easily, and you can change dynamics, and you can change tone colors. So that comes from this flexible embouchure. Now, using that neutral face, you can see I'm not contorting my face in any way. That's just where my face grows. I'm taking a big breath, and then I'm sending this really fast, free stream of air, and I'm allowing my face to form around it. And that's a different idea than forming an embouchure and then trying to push air through. So that's a pretty big concept, and I've just started verbalizing it that way in the last several years. But think about air flowing through your body and your face, your embouchure, just forming around the airstream. So it's just the nozzle at the very end of it, rather than forming an aperture and trying to push air through it. Okay, so now how do we use that fabulous, super relaxed, neutral embouchure and change octaves? If you had asked me this question when I was in high school, I would have had no idea the answer. And I find a lot of students when I say, so what do you do if you want to slur from that beat 1 octave higher, what should your lips do? And they're like, or they might say, something inside my mouth changes. Well, I like science, and it's an acoustic thing. Your lips need to go forward, and that's going to change the angle of the air. It's also going to speed it up a little bit. I, again, never talk about making the aperture smaller, because as soon as you tell somebody to make their aperture smaller, they're going to start pinching. If you keep it relaxed, it just shapes around that airstream. So in order to go from low, I think ah, that's my neutral position, ah. Then I start intensifying my airstream, and I start sliding my lips forward to an ooh position. So low, the lower it is, the more neutral or down and back it is. The higher it is, the more forward. So, but I have this, what's it called, an acronym, EALF, E-A-L-F. When you change notes, it should start with E. Your ear first needs to hear the next note. Then air needs to start changing toward the next note. Then your lips start moving toward the next note, and then finally you move your fingers. If it's a note that is a different fingering, I'm not going to move my fingers because I'm going to do an octave slur. But so now I want to hear an octave higher, and then I start increasing my air, just intensifying it a little bit, and then I start sliding my lips forward. And if I'm really lucky and I'm going in slow motion, I'm going to get a wonderful multiphonic. Where you hear the low note and the high note at the same time. I love doing that because it's a really great lesson in how if your air is really moving and leading the way, or if you're just going. So lead with your ear, air, lips, fingers, EALF. So neutral. And that's my favorite exercise in the whole world. I call it over the rainbow. Because if you really do it slowly and you're very mindful, it has a million components to it. First of all, a beautiful attack. You have to hear the sound. So you don't just go. And then developing the sound with the crescendo. Then it's an octave slur, which should be an intonation exercise. It doesn't matter in the beginning if you're 20 cents sharp on the bottom note or 15 cents flat, but you want to, when you do an octave slur, it needs to be exactly in tune. So if that bottom note is a little bit, let's see, so mine's 8 cents sharp right now. When you do the octave, you want it exactly 1 octave from where you were. That really ensures that you've got your chin parallel to the corner, your embouchure hole is facing the ceiling. You're not rolling in too much, which will compress that octave. And I'm doing it with my my hands, or rolled out too much. So in tune octave, so it's an attack, a crescendo, an octave slur, a tuning exercise. And then a taper exercise, and all of that is using your embouchure, because as you crescendo, your air needs to go further down. So I start out with my air, my lips are maybe forward a little bit, like I'm kissing my flute away. Crescendo, I'm dropping my jaw down and back and using my upper lip, which my amazing teacher Sally Turk would call the beak. I love that thought. I'm kind of reaching forward with my beak a little bit to get an in-tune crescendo, and I slide everything forward. And then, to play soft, this was a mystery to me for a long time. People had told me to raise my eyebrows, clench my butt, that's a little far away from the source, to slide the flute off to the side. But I think we should just keep the action right here in the embouchure. So to play soft, to do a taper or a long diminuendo, your air needs to go higher and higher and higher. Fast air aimed high. So how do you do that? You slide your jaw and your lips forward like you're kissing the flute away. So eventually your air's hitting the tip of your nose. Oh, there's a lot to embouchure. Okay, so as we go lower, the air is going to have to go down into the flute more. Try to keep things still relaxed. Of course, if your corners go forward to play higher, they're going to go back a little bit, or maybe get a little more firm to go lower. But what I really think about is sliding my jaw back and reaching forward with my upper lip. The upper lip is going to be, the beak is going to be what aims the air down. So I'm not really thinking pull my corners down. That's contorted. I'm still in this natural neutral position. I'm just using this like a garage door, my top lip. Another thing to think about, well, and as you go high in contrast, as we talked about, things go forward, but it's not even, without getting tight, and keep a lot of space here, keep everything loose, and keep reaching with that top lip. But now maybe your bottom lip's gonna come forward even with it. Depends on if you want to be loud or soft, but that's totally where the upper octave comes from. If you're playing soft, your jaw's gonna be forward. You can see my head joint go for a ride. So you don't want to move your flute or your head joint to change the pitch up there. This way you'll be able to keep a consistent tone quality. Okay, I think I've covered embouchure. A few more little points though as I think about this. Talking about the beak again. If you have an airy sound, there are usually two causes of that. One may be that you're not blowing enough air or your air is not fast enough. You know, it's counterintuitive. First cure there is blow more air and drop your jaw. You have to do all these things together though. You can't just drop your jaw. You can't just blow more air. You can't just relax your face. You have to do everything at the same time. The other cause might be your top lip pulling tight against your top teeth. That's why I like to think neutral corners so that my upper lip can release away from my top teeth. So there's an air cushion there. Super helpful thing to think about. And at first you may not be able to do that. I spent a lot of my undergrad years in front of the mirror, my teacher going, okay, lift your top lip up and out. And she would go, that's a lovely look on this video. And I would be like, cannot do it because I was so tight. I kind of had a smiley face, you know. So one great exercise to get control over that and to kind of back your way out of all sorts of problems that we have as flutists is to do whistle tones. And this book, check out my Peter Lucas graph, I think it's the 5th exercise. It's a wonderful whistle tone exercise. It's one of my secret weapons or secret remedies. You can diagnose problems and it's also the cure, this one exercise. So I figure high B, but produce that whistle tone. And in order to do it, you have to drop your jaw, relax your embouchure, release your upper lip away from your teeth. It's kind of a very tall embouchure, so think of dropping your jaw or pulling your chin away from your nose. So if you have a student or yourself and you try whistle tones, it's like, right there you can see, okay, corners are tight, so we need to release the corners, drop, and guarantee the jaw is too close together, so drop your jaw, reach with your upper lip, and really think of pulling your chin away from your nose. So you go from In order to do that, you have to do everything, drop your jaw, roll out, relax. And the most crucial thing is to have an experimental approach to it. That's where the beauty lies. It teaches you how to be ooey gooey and do different things with your face, which is how we learn flexibility. That's what flexibility is. So, and then you go from that last note, add your thumb, and then I just drop my jaw and use my upper lip to experiment and aim the air down a little bit more to slide my jaw down and back. So that's whistle tones. If you can't do them, it's either because you're a little bit too tight or you're a little too rolled in or your teeth are too close together. So try them. I promise the act of trying them will make you a better flute player, and it teaches you how to open up and relax. Then last thing before we go to lunch, this is how, years and years ago, when I was teaching a lot of beginners, a friend of mine went to a Suzuki workshop, and she was a clarinetist, but she came back and said, oh my gosh, I went to the flute workshop, and this is how they teach beginners. And I was like, show me, show me, show me, because teaching beginners is kind of a crapshoot. Some things work for some don't. This method, though, works for a way larger percentage of beginners than anything else I've ever done. And I like it, and it also works with my college students and adult students, high school students that I get that have some problems. And what I love about it is, number one, you're not telling them what to do physically, because I forgot, we didn't talk about tongue placement. Keep your tongue relaxed and down in your mouth. Ha, and the tip of it moves up to tongue, and the back moves if you're doing ka, but it should not be wadded up, and that's often a problem that we think is a non-embouchure problem, but it's because our tongue is in an E position. If you play the clarinet, that's great. Move your tongue around. Ah, E, I, O, U. Flute, just lay it down on the floor of your mouth. Ha. Now, super advanced, you might do a little bit of voicing with it to change colors, but that's way, way down the road. Basically, check your tongue and keep it down, which we're gonna talk about when we do this. So in the Suzuki method, or my variation of the Suzuki method, what you wanna do is imagine you have a grain of rice. You can even use rice. I don't ever mess with it, though. I have an imagination. Put it on the tip of your tongue, and then pretend you're sitting at a kitchen table, and you're gonna, without moving your head, you're gonna keep your chin below the floor, you're gonna spit that grain of rice onto your brother or your plate, and you're gonna do it in this rhythm. Hot dog, hot dog. So it's short, long, you're using the tip of your tongue. Then imagine you're going to spit it onto your sister's plate. She's sitting across the table from you. You're not allowed to move your head, so everything has to happen in your mouth. And then you're gonna spit over your sister's head at your mother. She's all the way across the kitchen. Again, not allowed to move your head, so we've got. And that's low, middle, and high register on the flute. What I love about it is that we've never once talked about taking a big breath, but the kids always take a big breath. We haven't talked about dropping your jaw, but they have to open their jaw because they're gonna get their tongue there. to spit the grain of rice. We haven't even talked about using the tongue, but they're using it. They're also blowing a really fast stream of air, and they're using different directions. Probably other things I'm not thinking about. Then when you get that going, I'll be the student and the teacher. You have the student sit up nice and tall, chin parallel to the floor. They're not moving their head, and they're just going to pretend they're spitting that grain of rice on their plate. And you come in with a head joint, and you're going to move it in and out. What you're looking for, again, is you're going to put the entire embouchure plate in the dent of their chin. For most people, the inside edge of the embouchure hole is going to be about where the pink part of the lip is. You look for the aperture, where that natural opening is, and you line up the embouchure hole with that opening in the lips, and then you look, and it should be covering about 1/4 to 1/3 of it. The embouchure hole is facing the ceiling. And I do that where I move it in a few times, and then I have the student help me by holding it like this. So their fingers are facing forward so they can't press very hard. Then they move it in and out with me a few times, and then I let them do it on their own. So without talking about it, they're blowing fast air, they're using different directions. That note, by the way, should be an A natural. If you do a different method and you kiss the hole and roll down, we know that's all illegal. It's an A flat, and that's a naughty no-no. So, and I would do that for a while, but I do this with my college students. It's like wham bam. I've never had one student who didn't have a big like, oh my God, light bulb moment. That's how my jaw should feel, or that's what a neutral face feels like, or that's how fast my air should go. That's how I aim my air. So it's great for beginners and every age, I think. And every time I do it, I get a little more freedom in my sound. It just makes everything a little bit easier. So the basic concepts: chin parallel to the floor, embouchure hole facing the ceiling, embouchure plate in the dent of the chin. So the inside edge of the embouchure hole is about where the pink part of the lip starts. If you have really thick lips, it might be up a little bit more. You find the place though where the opening in the lips is lined up with the opening with the embouchure hole. Bottom lip covers about 1/4 to 1/3. Embouchure hole's facing the ceiling. So that, and that's really crucial. It's really easy to go and roll up and get a sound, but that sound is going to have all sorts of problems as we develop. Really out of tune, low register is going to be weak, third octave is going to be pinched and shrill. So embouchure hole facing the ceiling. Then as you go on, you can put your hand over the end and now spit at your sister's plate. My plate, her plate. You don't even have to worry about going high yet. That'll come later. So I hope that was helpful. I know it's a lot of topics, but they're all connected. You cannot just talk about the face without talking about air and body and all that sorts of things. So have a great day. Bye.